I in this video I kind of wanna tackle, maybe this is a little controversial, I don't know, maybe amongst Christian groups, but that's the fact that, man, the Pharisees get a bad rep. Really, they really do. Um and it's ironic, right? Cuz the Pharisees, they're rightly criticized for their hypocrisy, but here's the thing though. Um many early Christians themselves were Pharisees. Um and although I don't think you can put Jesus Christ as either being a Pharisee or a Sadducee, um I think we can safely say that he was more on the side of the Pharisees usually than he was that of the Sadducees. His entire um sort of understanding of the Torah, thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your mind, and thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. That's a Hillelite Pharisee interpretation of the Torah. And Rabbi Hillel was this sort of great Jewish teacher who felt that maybe it's not that the rituals in the Torah weren't important, but that they sort of had to lead you to this more holistic understanding of the Torah, whereas there was this rabbi named Shammai who believed the opposite. He believed that, if you didn't do the rituals, the hand washings the correct way at all, it's over. That's it. That shows that no, you don't really understand the Torah, right? And really, the only thing that Christ ever agreed with Shammai on was marriage, right? He didn't think that people should get divorced. But that's basically it. The rest he agreed primarily with Hillel. And obviously with the Sadducees, the Sadducees were the priests. They were extremely assimilated. Those who were, educated enough to choose a faction, usually, if they were, sort of a Jesus type figure, from the country, from Galilee, they would choose the Pharisees, right? Because that's where they grew up. They didn't grow up with the privileges of being a Kohen Gadol, a high priest, or even a Kohen for the most part. Although it's interesting that our primary source on a lot of these things, Josephus, he was actually a high priest that belonged to the sect of the Pharisees, right? And so it's just a general, usually high priests were part of this faction, and usually Pharisees were part of the other sort of homegrown, sort of rural Pharisaic faction. But yeah, and if you read the Gospels, Jesus, obviously he doesn't like the priests, and they're the ones that really, because they were in the pockets of the Romans, didn't really they weren't a fan of him, bro. And he wasn't a fan of them. But more often than not, Pharisees defended Christians. You'll note in Acts chapter 5 when Peter and John and I think James get arrested in the temple. They go before the Sanhedrin, and who none other than Gamaliel, Hillel's grandson, and St. Paul's rabbinic teacher, his teacher in Torah, defends them and lets them go free. And that's like the most Pharisee that you can get, right? So I just think that people automatically assume that whatever is Pharisaical is bad, but that's not really the case. In fact, what does Jesus say in Matthew about the Pharisees? Do everything that they tell you, but not everything that they do, because they wouldn't keep their word in their actions, and that's the point. It wasn't that they were wrong about their strictness and their discipline, because they were very right about that, but it's that they weren't consistent, and that showed that they didn't really, in the sense of having a pure heart and having motivations, believe what they preached. Thank you very much for listening to my rant about the Pharisees.